Good evening and welcome to the Fairfield Board of Education meeting of January 12, 2023. Ms. Lane, call the roll, please.
Mr. Begley?
Here.
Ms. Birding?
Present.
Mr. Clark? Mrs. Gundram?
Here.
Mrs. Shorter?
Here.
Thank you, Mrs. Lane. The Pledge of Allegiance, Mrs. Shorter, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance.
In this board meeting, we will be deciding this year's term of president and vice president. So until that happens, I will be acting as president pro tem. I will now call for nominations for this year's president.
I nominate Brian Begley.
Second.
Thank you. Hearing no other nominations, we'll close that nominations and ask for a vote. Mrs. Lane, will you call for the vote?
Mrs. Gundram?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter?
Yes.
Ms. Birding?
Yes.
Mr. Begley?
Yes. So I guess I declare Brian Begley elected president of the Fairfield Board of Education for 2023, and we will now have the oath of office.
Will you stand and raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as Board President of the Board of Education of the Fairfield City School District, Butler County, Ohio, to the best of your ability, and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereinafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified? The answer is I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lane, please acknowledge in the minutes that the oath has been given, and I very much look forward to another year in the presidency of the board. Thank you very much for your support. Next up is the election of the vice president of the Board of Education, and I would open the floor for nominations.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let's fight over it, right? I would be honored to nominate Belina Shorter to serve as vice president this year.
Second.
No other nominations, then we will close the nominations and ask for a vote for Belina Shorter as vice president. Mrs. Lane?
Mr. Begley?
Yes.
Mrs. Gundram?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter?
Yes.
Ms. Birding?
Yes.
I now declare that Belina Shorter has been elected vice president of the Board of Education. Would ask Mrs. Lane to do the oath of office for the vice president.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as Board Vice President of the Board of Education of the Fairfield City School District, Butler County, Ohio, to the best of your ability, and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereinafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified? The answer is I do. I do. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. I would again direct the treasurer to acknowledge in the minutes that the oath has been given and Mrs. Shorter is now vice president for 2023 school year. Fiscal year, calendar year. The next year. Sorry. New business board recommendations, establishment of the 2023 meeting dates, times, and locations.
Yes, Mr. Begley and members of the board, we have several items for your consideration under new business and board recommendations. Letter A, establish 2023 meeting dates, times, and location as listed. Letter B, consider establishment of a board service fund for 2023 in the amount of $9,942. And letter C, recommend approval of the following standing authorizations for 2023. Numbers 1 through 7 deal with authorizations involving the treasurer and 8 through 13 deal with authorizations for a superintendent or designee, also director of curriculum instruction. If it's okay with the board, I would ask to waive the reading of 1 through 14.
Yes, there are no changes, right?
That is correct.
Yes.
All right, and then that concludes the items that we have for your consideration at this time. This time, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Begley for letter D, appointments to OSBA and city committees.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So I guess just some general conversation here amongst the board on these committee appointments. Mrs. Shorter has helmed the legislative liaison position. Would you like to continue in that position?
I would, unless someone else is open for it or is interested. Other than that, I will do it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mrs. Shorter will continue. Next is Parks and Rec for the city of Fairfield, so only Mr. Clark and I are eligible for that as residents. I spoke to Mr. Clark, and he does want to continue to do that, so please put his name down there. Planning Commission, I think we have a candidate, Mr. Smith?
Yes, I spoke with Doug Robertson, who has served as the board's designee for 2022, and he would really like to serve as the board's designee again in 2023.
Again, the Planning Commission is City of Fairfield.
Correct.
Have to be a resident. Thank you. Great. Then finally, Student Achievement. Mrs. Gundram has headed that. Would you like to continue?
I would love to do that.
Great, thank you very much. All right, then I think we've answered those questions. I need a motion to accept the recommendations.
So
as made.
moved. Second.
Ms. Birding and Mrs. Shorter. Mrs. Lane, please call the roll.
Ms. Birding?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter?
Yes.
Mrs. Gundram?
Yes.
Mr. Begley?
Yes. Thank you.